All right. So, what's up, everybody? Thanks for clicking this video. Thanks for tuning into my channel. If you're new here, I'll introduce myself. My name's Simon Hill, Black American from Louisiana, out here in Budapest, Hungary, recording these videos, doing daily live streams and uploads, that sort of stuff, in my spare time in between classes, because I'm an English teacher. And today we're going to be talking about a topic that I found interesting. The story of this Black woman who is now the lead architect in America, leading the Association of Architects. And maybe this live stream is not working because of issues I'm having either with OBS or my internet connection. But I hope you catch it on the playback and I hope you enjoy it. So I'm just going to test this out to see if it works with me. So let's get into it. A Black woman's rise in architecture shows how far is left to go. They have worked for decades to make their way in a profession that remains overwhelmingly white and male, but there are signs of change. This was written for the New York Times, published on November 11th, 2023, written by Jane Margolis. And here's a picture of this Black woman here. Shout out to the sister. Her name is Kimberly Dowdell, and she will become the American Institute of Architects' first Black female president in its 166-year history. So shout out to her, claps to her, applause to her, and everything like that. I just want to say this, though. My thing is about Black faces in high places. We shouldn't just get so excited about the first Black woman to be a Supreme Court justice, or the first Black man to be the head of the Department of Defense, or the first Black woman to be the lead architect for the Association of American Architects. We shouldn't get so excited about that because these are bourgeoisie people who are achieving bourgeoisie things. Like they are ascending in capitalism, right? So there's one way of looking at it where you're just saying, okay, what does this have to do with me? The majority of us are still poor, still dispossessed, still living in dilapidated housing, still have poor education outcomes, still have poor healthcare outcomes, et cetera, still face discrimination in the justice system. There are many things to still be upset about, but I think there's a lot to learn from the experiences of Black people who still have to navigate in this world. And despite their success, despite their educational attainment, despite their backgrounds, wherever they may come from, however much money you have, you are still a nigga in this world. And you still have to go through being treated like a Black person. And so there is still a lot to be gained from learning from these experiences of people who are melanated in a white supremacist world. So let's get into the story. When Kimberly Dowdell becomes president of the American Institute of Architects next month, her ascent will be noteworthy. Miss Dowdell, an architect in a profession that is overwhelmingly white and male, is a Black woman, the first to fill the post in the group's 166-year history. African Americans make up 13.6% of the U.S. population, but only 1.8% of licensed architects in the country are Black, according to the National Council of Architectural Registration Boards. Fewer than a quarter of the nearly 120,000 licensed architects in the United States are women, and not even 0.5% of architects are Black women. Black female architects are so few and far between, and obtaining licensure is such a point of pride among them that many take pains to note their place in the chronology of advancement in the field. Miss Dowdell, 40, said that in 2013, she became the 295th living Black woman to be licensed in the United States. So that's so rare. Like it's that rare for Black people to become architects that you can still count. Like you can still count and find out how many Black female architects or Black architects in general there were. Now, about the field of architecture, I don't know much about it, but I would assume that architecture is a field that you succeed in and gain a lot of money in, usually towards the end of your career, like, or it takes some time to build up. It's not like becoming a lawyer or a doctor after you go through all those years of study that the big paychecks sort of come instantly into your lap. So I believe that architecture is something that you sort of, even after you get licensed, even after you've gone through all the schooling, you still have to go through many years of trial and error, learning under fire, learning under pressure to be able to actually succeed in that field. And I think for a lot of our people, what we're looking for from our education, where we go into mountains of student loan debt, like I did, and where we study for many years to earn our masters or our PhDs, we're looking for that payout because a lot of us come from economic destitution and deprivation, that we want to be able to see the change in our lives after investing so much into education. And I think that might be a reason why not a lot of Black people go into architecture as a field of study. So that's just my assumption. I'm not that educated on architecture, but hopefully this article will tell me more about it. So there are small signs of change. Nearly 3% of architects who received their license last year were Black, and 43% of new architects were women. Going to continue. We're working on moving the needle, but we'll need at least a decade, said Miss Dowdell, who is the director of strategic relationships at the design firm HOK and is based in Chicago. She pointed out that it could take 10 years or longer to obtain an architecture degree, fill a work experience requirement, and pass licensure exams to become a registered architect. See, there is a long path towards becoming a successful architect, like 10 years of study, and then filling that work experience. So there's a lot of grinding to reach the top, or to at least make it to a middle class lifestyle working as an architect. And that's something that a lot of our people really don't have the time or energy to invest into. Not because we're lazy, not because we're stupid, not because we have any fault in us. It's because of the circumstances that propel us to go into certain careers or fields. A lot of brothers and sisters go into engineering, law, medicine, things that have more, how can I say, substantial payouts at the end that come a lot quicker, and that also come with a lot of standing and prestige. I think being an architect is a prestigious career, but it's not as prestigious as other fields that you can go into that have, like I said, easier payouts at the end. Not easy as in you can become a doctor overnight, but once you become that doctor, okay, now the money starts to roll in. Once you become a lawyer, okay, now the money starts to roll in. You get what I'm saying? Going to continue here. Here's Richie Hands. Richie Hands was one of the newly licensed architects recognized in a ceremony by National Organization of Minority Architects. Now I can say I'm an architect, which is awesome. By the way, I want to shout out Miss Kimberly Dowdell, because she is 40 years old. She's a 40-year-old woman who made it to like the top of the Association of Architects. So she's a very young woman who made it there. So salute to her. It's not easy being a young person in this world too, when we still have so many old people gatekeeping. So I'm going to continue. Yet progress toward racial and gender equity in the profession is by no means guaranteed, especially now that the Supreme Court has rolled back affirmative action in college admissions. Some say there has been backpedaling on diversity efforts that companies trumpeted after the Black Lives Matter protests. There's always been a backlash to Black progress, said Sharon Agreta Sutton, 82, a distinguished visiting professor at the Parsons School of Design in New York, and the 12th Black female licensed U.S. architect. Wow. Wow. And the 12th Black female licensed. Are they talking about living? Or are they talking about ever? Because earlier Kimberly said she was the 295th Black architect, right? But maybe she's like one of 12 or one of 24. I wonder what's the actual number of Black architects. I hope they give that number here. So I'm going to continue. Still, the visible presence of a Black woman atop the AIA, which has more than 96,000 members, is an achievement in and of itself, and perhaps an inspiration to others, Ms. Dowdell said. Representation matters, she added. The design professions help shape what is built in this country, and architecture is not the only one lacking diversity. Of licensed landscape architects, only 0.8% are Black, and 0.3% are Black women, said Matt Miller, chief executive of the council that administers the landscape architect registration examination. 39% of landscape architects are female. Wow, even a smaller minority, even a smaller minority. So I definitely think it's important that we have Black architects, that we have Black people that know how to design and build, because this is an important repertoire that we need to have as a community. A lot of other communities have various groups of people within them. They have their lawyers, their doctors, also their engineers, their writers, that sort of stuff. We as Black people, especially Black Americans, we need to have a vast array, a difference of people amongst us with different talents and skills to make sure that we can take care of us. You know, how can I say this? How can I say this? My father was a cardiologist, right? So that's a very valuable skill, to be able to, look at people's hearts, look at people's insides, and be able to disclose what sort of problems they might be having within them, right? And he was able to take care of me, my brother, my mother, and put food on the table and help us go to college and all that. So we need various skills within us to make sure that the next generation will be okay. So I'm going to read this. The Directory of African American Architects started with 870 names in 1991. Today, it totals 1,942 men and 593 women. So, interior design has a reverse gender gap. There are vastly more women than men in the field, partly because for decades, women were not considered up to the rigors of architecture and were steered to interiors instead. Only around 1.5% of practitioners are Black, said Cheryl S. Durst, the chief executive of the International Interior Design Association. The proportion of Black architects is significantly below the share of Black professionals in other fields requiring intensive study and rigorous exams. More than 6% of lawyers in the United States are Black, according to data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Okay, so yeah, so once again, I'm learning as I go. And it seems like to become an architect, it's very, very rigorous. So, like to become a lawyer, you pass the LSAT and then the bar, right? Of course, you have to get into bachelor's, like undergraduate program, and then you have to go to law school. But you take the LSAT, I believe, to get into law school, then the bar to become a licensed regular lawyer. And I think to become a lawyer in the U.S. takes about 5 years, right? They're talking about multiple tests that you have to take, or very rigorous tests that you have to take to become an architect. Then you have to work for many years just to build up your resume and that sort of stuff. I'm sure the payout at the end to be a big time architect is very huge. It's probably bigger than the lawyers and doctors. Like the starchitects, the architects that are considered stars, legends, they probably have, millions and millions of dollars, right? And it's not hard for them to finance a certain lifestyle. But to get there, it takes a long time, right? It's like being a rapper. So, the dearth of Black architects means that the buildings in which many minority Americans live, work, and play are often designed by people who may not be attuned to their cultural reference points, experts say. And the design of all spaces, regardless of who uses them, can suffer when decisions do not include a variety of perspectives. Even memorials to enslaved Africans in the country may be designed by people who are not Black. Very important. Yeah, very important that we have Black people, Black Americans, people descended of slavery, designing those memorials to Africans who were captured and kidnapped. I think that's very important because we want to make sure that our image is put out there in the right way. We don't need another statue of a Black man on his knees with shackles up while a white man's on a horse looking down on him, which those statues do exist, by the way. So, but the scarcity of Black architects can be self perpetuating. Black industry observers say youngsters may not learn about the profession if there are no architects in their communities. Then, too, Black parents may be wary of the profession if architecture enters their lives only as a threat, as with the arrival of luxury housing that displaces neighborhood residents. When you see architecture as the enemy, it's difficult to have children say, I want to do that, said Craig Wilkins, associate professor of architecture at the University of Michigan. And parents may be reluctant to incur debt to pay for a child's architecture degree, which can require thousands of dollars in supplies on top of tuition, given that the median salary under 83,000 US dollars lags those in adjacent fields like engineering. So Ozzy jumped into the chat. Ozzy said, salute. Shout out to Ozzy. I hope the live stream is playing well. Let me know how the live stream is going. Let me know if it's choppy. Let me know if the audio is cutting out. Ozzy, let me know if you can't hear me, because I'm having some issues with the live stream on my phone, but I'm glad that I'm getting comments in, and shout out to the people that rock with me. So yeah, once again, becoming an architect is expensive, but once again, it's expensive to go to any US school, any university. It's very easy if you don't go to a state school with a scholarship to end up in tens of thousands of dollars in debt. And then that debt continues to rack up due to interest. And you cannot file for bankruptcy, which is absolutely wrong. We should make it so that you go to school and then you can ball out. You can ball out after you graduate, and then you just get to wipe it off your record. And then for those 7 years after bankruptcy, yeah, you just get your record straight. You go and get your credit straight, and then you start all over again. That's the way it should be. That's the way it should be. Because if the U.S. can't be like Europe and provide for its citizens the essentials to have an education to compete in the modern economy, the technological economy, the AI economy, if the US won't do that, then fuck it. I mean, might as well just let us file for bankruptcy, ruin our financial history, and then we start all over. At least let us do that. But they won't even let us do that in the US. Student loan debt is unbankruptable. You got to keep it. You got to keep it. It's like herpes. It's like herpes. I'm going to continue right here. So this is Kimberly Dowdell. Once again, I'm not seeing anything in this article that makes me not like this woman. I'm proud of seeing a sister succeed. So shout out to this woman for doing it. The only problem I will have is if later after I do this and I find out Kimberly Dowdell is a coon. If she was cooning it up. It doesn't matter if she has a white husband or a white boyfriend. I don't care about that. I'm talking about her talking points. If she has Candace Owing talking points, or if she's going out here talking about she pulled herself up by her bootstraps, then I got a problem with her. That's the only time. I will only be mad at black people if they speak coon talking points. If they start talking about, well, black on black crime is a problem, or what about Chicago, or y'all need to stop complaining about police shooting y'all in the back and beating y'all over the head. That's the only time I'll ever admonish another black person. Until then, Kimberly Dowdell is cool. I'm glad for her success. Shout out to all black women who are succeeding, thriving, surviving in this white supremacist world that we live in. All that good stuff. So we're working on moving the needle, but we'll need at least a decade, said Ms. Dowdell, who is the director of strategic relationships at the design firm HOK. The cost of licensure is another reason that architecture has been regarded as a profession of privilege. Candidates must pass 6 tests of the years, and it is common for candidates to have tests multiple times to pass. Practice materials alone are expensive. So yeah, becoming an architect is definitely not easy. The more they explain it, and yeah, $1,400 is not a lot of money, but why do that? Why take 6 different tests when you can just take the LSAT or the bar one time pass and become a lawyer or something like that? And I think it is important for architects to have multiple tests because we want to make sure the buildings that we're living in are actually not going to fall down and crumble. We don't want to, be sitting in our living room and then we fall down into some sinkhole. So I think it is important for there to be rigor, but once again, I think this is the failure of the American education system that makes it so hard to gain professional degrees, to gain professional experience, to gain educational attainment, because we value everything on a price. Everything has to be priced. When you're trying to become when you're trying to become a doctor, lawyer, architect, so much money goes into just gaining education in the US, which is not how it should be. But I partially think they make education so expensive just to gatekeep us out of it. I really think this is another part of white supremacy where the idea is make it so expensive for black people to learn. Because when we see the wealth gap in the US, how white Americans have so much more money than the average black American, yeah, it's no problem for them to, put a reverse mortgage on their house and, send Katie and Billy off to 4 years of private education, and then they can foot the bill later. But meanwhile, we have to go into mountains of debt, struggle, and try to fight for just the basic resources just to get a good job. You know what I mean? I'm going to continue. For decades, black architects have worked to make their way in the field. On the heels of the civil rights movement, many started their own firms. Back then, they were limited in how far they could advance in majority firms, said Stephen Lewis, a principal at ZGF, a majority-owned design firm. In 1971, black architects united to form the National Organization of Minority Architects. It gave us a safe space where we could discuss issues, but also share our work and celebrate our work, said Mr. Lewis, a former president of the organization. In the 1980s, 2 NOMA members started searching out licensed black architects for what they would call the Directory of African American Architects. We would go to conferences and ask around, said Bradford Grant, one of the directory creators and the interim chair of the architecture department at Howard University. That's something interesting. I know this happened in the 80s, so this was after segregation, right? But it would be interesting for somebody to create a national directory or a universal directory of black English teachers. I think that would be dope. I think that would be very dope because I think we need to make sure that Black businesses, Black entrepreneurs, Black contractors are able to be easily found and met and supported. Because right now, a lot of Black businesses don't get a lot of support just because people don't know where they are, or they're going for the easiest alternative. They would rather go to the store right down the street rather than walking 2 blocks to the Black business that's right around there that sells the same product and probably at a better price or better value. And it's not because that they don't want to support Black business, it's just because they don't know. So I think it's important that we put out the information for where Black businesses, Black contractors, Black entrepreneurs can be supported. So I think that will be dope to do something like that for my industry. Going to continue. So in the 1980s, 2 NOMA members started searching out licensed Black architects for what they would call the Directory of African American Architects. We would go to conferences and ask around, said Bradford Grant, one of the directory creators and the interim chair of the architecture department at Howard University. Their first edition, printed in 1991, had 870 names. Today, NOMA contains the directory online. Current total 2,535, 1,942 men, 593 women. All right, so here Mr. Hands being pinned at NOMA annual conference. So good to see this brother achieve success. I hope these brothers aren't a bunch of tethers. I hope they're not a bunch of tethers. I hope when we talk about Black architects, we're not just talking about Abongo from Nigeria. Shout out to Abongo from Nigeria, but we're trying to make sure Black Americans are recognized and supported here. And so, yeah, we love that all Black people are succeeding, but I think it's very valuable that we elevate our Black American sisters and brothers who are achieving so well. Because let's keep it real, a lot of the Africans that come to the U.S., a lot of them hold anti-Black views or anti-Black American views, and then on top of that, they speak coon talking points, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. They vote Republican, all sort of crazy stuff that the tethers do. And yeah. So no love for any tethers. Now, if you're a Black immigrant and you're cool and you're on our side, you're fighting for our reparations, you're fighting for justice and into white supremacy, all that sort of stuff, you're okay. But I hope we're not talking about tethers here. I hope we're not talking about a bunch of tethers. I'm just keeping it real. Let's go. So Richie Hands, 34, was one of the newly licensed architects recognized in the ceremony at NOMA's annual conference last month. Now I can say I'm an architect, which is awesome, he said. Black women have rooted one another. Black women have rooted one another on. Catherine T. Prigmore, Director of Operations in Washington for Moody Nolan, a Black-owned firm, has organized presentations at conferences in which women share their stories of adversity and achievement. Catherine Williams, an architect in Falls Church, Virginia, founded the Black Women in Architecture Network to bring colleagues together for brunches and raise funds to help licensing candidates with exam fees. And there are programs to expose Black youths to architecture. NOMA chapters offer summer camps. Michael Ford, an architect and the founding partner of Brand New Design Studio, has invited rappers to his hip hop architecture camp sessions in a bid to make the profession more relevant culturally. He said, I hate how they slap hip hop onto anything they want to try to make cool. Let's go to the hip hop architecture camp. Yeah, we building up buildings. We scale it up. Oh, we dealing. Like, stop slapping hip hop on stuff when you just want the kids to get entertained. That's not how it goes. All right. Doing the hibbity hibbity. We're gonna build buildings, and no, we don't want that. Stop it. It's not cool. It's not cool. But whatever gets the kids interested in something besides twerking and talking about my pussy pink and my booty hole brown, whatever works. Whatever works, but not this. Can we do something else? Can we be more creative? Treat the kids like young adults. Don't just slap hip hop on it. The Hip Hop Architecture University. What is that thing going to be like? What is that thing going to be like? All right, I'm sorry. I'm going to continue. Howard University has educated more Black architects than any other historically Black colleges and universities, and more than all of the predominantly white institutions combined, said Professor Grant, who has done research on the topic. Howard has significantly more female architecture students than male, he added. Despite wide-ranging efforts, the most significant gains for people of color since 2018 have been made by those who identify as Latino, and Black women appear to be making more headway than Black men. The lack of progress has discouraged some. I just have to say this in general, in higher education in the US, women are the ones who are graduating more, having more achievement and that sort of stuff. And there are a lot of reasons why that I won't get into, but I think it is important that we do something to help Black men and men in general catch up in the education arena, in the education sphere. A lot, I think there in the US, more women have bachelor's degrees than men, if that makes sense. And I think the danger of having an uneducated male populace is that you are risking the chance or the opportunity for a revolution to happen or violence to happen, political violence. Let's keep it real. A lot of the Trump supporters who tried to run into the Capitol and hang Mike Pence and tried to overthrow the government, and the Trump supporters who have been shooting illegal immigrants and doing race massacres like in Buffalo or in Jacksonville. A lot of these people don't even have college degrees. They are young white men without college degrees. They are the most dangerous thing on the planet. Nothing is more dangerous than stupid, poor white people. Nothing is more dangerous than that. And no people shall be more victimized than Black men who do not have education. We don't want that recipe in America. We don't want that recipe in the world. So we need to make education more attainable for Black men, and also at the same time for our own safety, for the world's safety. Because if history has taught us anything, stupid, poor white people do the worst. Who went to America and killed all the Indians? Who went to Australia and slaughtered the indigenous? Who went to Latin America and raped all those Indian women? Poor, ignorant, stupid white men. We don't want the repeat. We don't want the repeat. Don't do the repeat. Let's get everybody a college degree. You get a college degree. You get a college degree. We need Oprah out here passing out college degrees. I'm going to continue here. Despite wide-ranging efforts, the most significant gains of people of color since 2018 have been made by those who identify as Latino, and Black women appear to be making more headway than Black men. And I've been hearing that for 50 years, said Dr. Sutton, who has written about her experience being recruited to Columbia's architecture program after a 1968 campus uprising and the students' drive to improve slum conditions near the school. Working outside the system may offer the most hope at this point, she said. Maybe change needs to come from the ground up. All right, here's a picture of a field. Peter Robertson, an assistant professor at Cornell, devoted a recent design studio to the community gardens that Brooklyn residents created in abandoned lots. All right, this is interesting. This is interesting. So I'm going to continue here. Some Black architects have recently been able to advance at majority white firms. Others are championing a community-centric design process and calling themselves design justice practitioners. Peter Robinson, an assistant professor at Cornell, encourages students to learn from and help preserve the spaces Black people have fashioned for themselves. He devoted a recent design studio to the community gardens that Brooklyn residents created in abandoned lots. Miss Williams of the Black Women in Architecture Network said there was only so much that she and others could accomplish in a society that persisted in seeing people who aren't white men as less qualified. What is most needed is a changing culture, she added. So once again, shout out to Miss Kimberly Dowdell. Miss Kimberly Dowdell, leader of the American Institute of Architects. Shout out to her. Continue being Black excellent, continue striving, continue thriving. We love to see you grow. Once again, we don't get too happy about Black faces in high places, because what does that have to do for our survival in general? But it is good to see that Black people can overcome anything, because I'm sure Miss Kimberly Dowdell faced all the hurdles that we go through as well. What are you doing here? Why are you studying this? This isn't something for a woman to do. This isn't something that Black people do. I think you should do something else. I think you should be a nurse. I think you should be a teacher. I think you should go be a social worker. I think you should be a rapper. I think you should be a singer. I think you should be a ball player. I think you should be a drug dealer. I think you should be a prostitute. All the things, all the negative things the white supremacists put into our minds and limit us and tell us what we can or can't do. She broke those barriers, and at the very least, she deserves her flowers. She deserves her flowers at least. So we'll always put respect on her name unless those coon talking points come out. Then I'm going to come back and retract everything I said and I'm going to light her ass up. But until then, love to Miss Kimberly Dowdell. Shout out to everybody who tuned into this live stream. Sorry if I'm having problems with the stream or if the quality is bad or it's very choppy. I'm going to watch this on the playback and figure out what I can do. But I love chopping it up with y'all. Y'all continue to support your boy, watch your boy, stay in for more content. We're going to start adding thumbnails, more edited videos. The live streams might start changing too. I think I'm having problems with the live stream because I updated OBS and tried to make it more professional and looking, and maybe I messed up in the settings, but I don't ever want to miss the opportunity to grind it out and continue to build the legacy here that this channel will be, unless YouTube decides to ban me for whatever reason. But thanks for watching. Catch you on the next time. Peace.